UFC Vegas 109 went down last night, and I'm going to give my quick recap of the card. All in all, it was a solid card. I had already mentioned from a betting standpoint, it was a bit heinous, but we got some pretty exciting fights, some pretty entertaining matchups, and we'll start right into it. We got the first bout of the night, Eric McConaughey and Cody Brundage. I do not have the fight stats for this one for whatever reason. It was a pretty back and forth fight. Both of these guys took it on short notice at 205. These are two middleweights, by the way. I thought Cody Brundage did the better work. I thought he won rounds 1 and rounds 2. I also think that Cody Brundage had an argument for round 3. The judges' scorecards were all over the place. They always say don't call close fights robberies, and I typically agree, but there are certain things that make decisions egregious. For example, in this fight, the two judges that scored the fight for Eric McConaughey gave Eric McConaughey the second round. And one of those judges gave Cody Brundage the third round. I don't understand how you give Cody Brundage the third round, but you don't give him the second. I felt like the second was the most decisive round for Cody Brundage. And like I said, I think there's an argument that he won all 3 rounds. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this judging. We've had this problem for quite some time. And there needs to be some investigations done. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to vet the judges better. They need to kick people out for these egregious scorecards. Ben Cartilage this weekend had 3 scorecards that were absolutely ridiculous. I'm also a big Cody Brundage fan, so I want justice for Cody Brundage, but it is what it is. He loses the decision. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. I think he's an entertaining fighter. He's willing to fight. There's always drama when Cody Brundage is going to the octagon. So all in all, Eric McConaughey wins the fight. One of 2 underdogs on the entire card. And we start off 0-1 on our picks. In our next bout, we have Gabriela Fernandez and Julia Stoliarenko. I picked Gabby Fernandez. I had a lean that she was going to win inside the distance. This fight went pretty much how I thought it was going to go. Julia Stoliarenko is going to need to get the fight to the ground so she can, get her submission attempts off. It did not happen. She was trying to get Gabriela Fernandez to the ground. Gabriela Fernandez takedown defense looked pretty solid. She was outstriking. Apparently, Stoliarenko outstruck Gabriela Fernandez. I'm not sure how that's possible on these stats, but Gabriela Fernandez put on a striking clinic. She was doing very well all 3 rounds. I thought it was pretty clear-cut 30-27 decision. But Fernandez had an opportunity for a showcase bout here. She got a layup of a fight. No disrespect to Stoliarenko, but she's not a striker. She doesn't have good offensive wrestling. Gabriela Fernandez just wouldn't push a finish. At some point in the second round, she hurt Julia Stoliarenko to the body and then just completely abandoned the body. And she was just a headhunter after that. She could have got, in my opinion, Fernandez could have finished the fight in the first round if she just went forward with reckless abandon. She really didn't have any threat on the other side. I guess she was very, very tentative because of, Stoliarenko's sub threat. I just didn't think she provided anything for Fernandez here. And I think she put on a very lackluster performance. Although it was dominant, I think that her not inability, but her lack of willingness to press a finish was pretty underwhelming. I was expecting a solid, breakout performance from Fernandez here, although she did have a pretty solid finish of Kong Wang as well as a massive underdog. Underwhelming performance, but a very clear-cut and decisive victory for Gabriela Fernandez. In our next bout, we have a welterweight matchup between Uros Medic and Gilbert Urbina. If you looked at my breakdown video, the pick was Uros Medic, but Gilbert Urbina was a dog of note because of his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling, and he's a lengthy guy. He can snatch up a choke if given the opportunity. 5 seconds into the fight, Gilbert Urbina knocks Uros Medic down with a straight right down the pipe. And Medic, he scrambles, he gets his wit back about himself, and about 50 seconds later, he delivers a left hand that absolutely puts Gilbert Urbina out cold. That's what we thought was going to happen. Round 1, knockout for Uros Medic, plus 190. Called that one on the picks, and it's a solid performance here from Medic. He was able to face adversity, recover, and then deliver a vicious knockout of his own. There are concerns for the chin of Uros Medic. He's getting hurt in some of these fights. So moving forward, Uros Medic, he's a solid fighter, solid prospect. He's always there to bang. So I'm a Uros Medic fan. 2-1 on the picks now, by the way. 0-1, we picked Brundage. 1-1, we picked Fernandez. 2-1, we picked Uros Medic. And our next fight was actually a very confident pick of mine. Jocelyn Edwards and Priscilla Cachoeira at women's bantamweight. So this fight was pretty awesome, man. I thought Jocelyn Edwards would be able to keep Priscilla Cachoeira at bay using kicks and keeping a range. But she didn't really do that too much here. She was willing to engage in the boxing with Cachoeira, even though she has a lot of power. Jocelyn Edwards was getting tagged a little bit. Not anything that I thought was concerning to the point where she might need to back up or go to the wrestling. She did briefly wrestle, but Jocelyn Edwards was like, nah, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to box with this zombie girl. And Priscilla Cachoeira refused to put her hands up. She was all offense, no defense. Jocelyn Edwards took advantage of it, landed a left, looping right shot that sat Priscilla Cachoeira down, and then ultimately finished the fight with ground and pound. I posted from the CST page, Jocelyn Edwards caught a body. We actually put that in at the last second as well. Jocelyn Edwards by knockout at plus 650. My initial lean was a submission, but before the fight started, I thought, you know what? Cachoeira has a pretty solid chin, and she's eventually going to get cracked. She's not as young as she used to be. Obviously, that's how age works. And Jocelyn Edwards is really coming into her own as a prospect. I was very, very impressed with her performance. I have been impressed with her for quite some time now. I know a lot of people aren't as high as I am on Edwards, but I think she could actually be an up-and-coming title contender here in the next year. So we moved to 3-1 on the picks. And next we move to Elijah Smith and Toshiami Kazama. At bantamweight, this was pretty brutal. Toshiami Kazama was on the ground for the majority of the fight, getting beat up by Elijah Smith. He was threatening submissions. I will give him that. He attempted multiple submissions. It looked like one or two of them could have been close at one point, but Elijah Smith was just too much of an athletic specimen here. He was able to stay safe, use his athleticism to get out of positions, and then ultimately, when Toshiami Kazama, went for a triangle choke, Elijah Smith easily lifted him into the air on his tippy toes and everything and slammed him to the canvas. There was a clash of heads there as well, and then a couple brutal follow-up shots. This knockout was genuinely disturbing. Me and my buddy were sitting there like, is this guy going to die? Like, this is absolutely... That was brutal. I mean, when I was younger, I probably would have been like, oh my God, fuck yeah. And part of me was still kind of thinking like that, but I'm getting a little older. It wasn't even up here where I'm thinking, damn, that was brutal. It was like in my body, like, oh, that's rough. You got to feel for Kazama. He was incredibly tough. He was taking a lot of damage. He refused to quit, and ultimately he got put out by a vicious, vicious power bomb. Good win for Elijah Smith. I mean, you know, this was kind of a showcase spot for him as well, and he delivered. He was the biggest favorite on the card, and he delivered an absolutely vicious performance bonus earning knockout. So I'm happy Kazama's okay. He posted earlier today at Five Guys, so I'm glad to see that he's all right. He's going to need to take some serious time off. 4-1, by the way, on the picks. And then we got Julius Walker and Rafael Sequeira, light heavyweight. So this fight was interesting. I thought Julius Walker would be able to implement the wrestling in a more dominant manner earlier in the fight. I thought he probably could have got a finish via ground and pound strikes. He did wrestle a lot. He was mostly going for submissions. It says he has 0 submission attempts, but he was threatening Kimuras. He was trying to find rear nakeds. Cheeky arm triangle. He wasn't striking as much on the ground as I thought he would. And Julius Walker, his cardio could potentially need some improving, or at least energy conservation during the fight, because we found him again in round 3, very, very fatigued. But he does have the will to win, and he has a lot of heart. Julius Walker refused to give up. He was still wrestling hard. He was still throwing winging shots, trying to damage his opponent to get to the legs and get a takedown. Sequeira, he wanted to fight. He wanted to be there. You know, I don't want to say he's a good striker, but he carries power and he's willing to engage. Julius Walker did not give him very many opportunities on the feet, as Walker was getting tagged and damaged on the feet. So he was keeping the fight where he knew he had the advantage, which was in the wrestling. He was a lot stronger there. And ultimately, he won a unanimous decision victory. I thought it was pretty clear. A little bit underwhelming. I thought Julius Walker was going to showcase a better skill set. Not a better skill set, but I thought he was going to showcase a more dominant performance. But either way, it's a win. It's his first win in the UFC. He's going to improve from this. He's only 25 years old, and I think Julius Walker can make some adjustments, work on the cardio, work on the energy conservation, and he can potentially slow climb his way up the ranks, and we'll see what happens. 5-1 on the picks now. And we head to the main card. Now, this was my pick of the week. Christian Leroy Duncan and Eric Anders in a middleweight bout. Eric Anders has not been finished. He's a very durable, very tough guy. He will engage in the striking. He likes to work the clinch and uses wrestling. And Christian Leroy Duncan spins a lot. So I had a little cause for concern that he might spin and get caught lacking, get taken down and controlled. And we kind of saw that a little bit in the beginning of the fight. Christian Leroy Duncan was able to work his way back to his feet. And my disclaimer was the spinning. And the spinning is what actually got him the KO, which was my favorite prop of the week. Christian Leroy Duncan by knockout at plus 190. He ends up spinning with an elbow and rocking Eric Anders. He falls back against the cage. Christian Leroy Duncan follows up with some ground and pound and puts Eric Anders out, and the fight is over in 1 round. It was a statement performance, finishing a tough guy like Eric Anders the way he did. Very excited. I've been underwhelmed with CLD thus far in his career, but I think he's really starting to make some waves. So Christian Leroy Duncan, good win. Cashes on the favorite prop of the week. I'm excited about that, and the picks move to 6-1. Next, we have a bantamweight bout between Miles Johns and Gene Matsumoto. This is a pretty good fight. I knew Miles Johns was going to be tough. Gene Matsumoto was the pick. Gene Matsumoto was, by decision, was one of the favorite props of the week, and he ended up winning a split decision. This was another interesting scorecard from Ben Cartlidge. He gave Miles Johns rounds 2 and 3, and he gave Matsumoto the first round. And on my scorecard, I would say there's an argument for Matsumoto to win all 3 rounds. But if there was a round that he lost, it was going to be round 1. Miles Johns, he displayed a lot of toughness. His will to win was there. He had heart. He continued to fight the entire time. He was trying to use wrestling. He was throwing his big right-hand bomb. He was eating a lot of leg kicks. He was landing a lot on the arms of Gene Matsumoto, and Matsumoto, in my opinion, was landing the cleaner shots. Solid prospect. I think Miles Johns is a good win, man. He's a very good win. Gene Matsumoto's young. I believe he's 25 years old. And I think he's a promising prospect in this division. Do I think he's a title contender? It's too early to tell. But clear-cut victory, I think 29-28 for Gene Matsumoto, winning rounds 2 and rounds 3. And then we move to 7-1 on the picks. Not that that's super impressive or anything. We got a lot of massive favorites on this card, so most people probably did pretty good with their picks. Next, we have a featherweight bout between Andre Fili and Christian Rodriguez. I went out on a whim and I picked Christian Rodriguez here, and I prefaced it with, if you're a superstitious bettor, Andre Fili wins this fight. He does not lose 2 in a row. He trades win, loss for quite some time, and he is coming off of a loss to Melquizael Acosta. So, based on that, Andre Fili wins this fight. I threw out my superstitious logic, and I went with Christian Rodriguez. I got to tell you, Christian Rodriguez was tough, but he needs to get disciplined. He needs to get on a diet, and he needs to see a nutritionist, because Christian Rodriguez is not a featherweight. Christian Rodriguez needs to figure it out, and he needs to make 135, and he might have an actual chance of being a contender in that division. And that's being, what's the word I'm looking for? That's being generous. Christian Rodriguez is solid. He does very well against fighters who do not have that much experience. But then when given a fighter who does have experience, he does not fight. It's not that he doesn't fight well. He just, he's not as good. He's a relatively young guy. I think that Andre Fili looked amazing. Usually a 135er coming up to featherweight should be the faster guy. Andre Fili looked very, very fast. He put on a very good performance. He stayed safe. Christian Rodriguez was not offering very much in terms of his wrestling. He was trying to wrestle, and when he got taken down, he was able to get back to his feet every time, but he just didn't have, he didn't have the firepower, he didn't have the speed, and the wrestling wasn't getting off the way I thought that it could have. So it was a great win for Andre Fili, beating a young guy like C-Rod. I'm happy for Andre Fili. He's an awesome fighter. Very cool tattoos as well. I'm a big fan of Andre Fili. Hindsight's a bitch. I should have picked him. I felt like I should have picked him, and I just tried to go with the smart pick, go with the younger guy who's very good. He's probably experienced enough now where he can deal with an experienced fighter. Throw it out the window. Not happening. We need Christian Rodriguez at bantamweight, and until then, he will probably be faded unless they give him an absolute can. Next fight. Now we're 7-2 on picks, by the way. Next fight, we have a women's strawweight bout between Yasmin Lucindo and Angela Hill. I've seen a lot of people talking shit on Angela Hill. Throw some respect on Angela Hill. She is a tried and true veteran, and she's always tough, man. No matter who she's fighting, she's in the fight. She did very, very well in round one. Yasmin Lucindo is 17 years younger. She is a power puncher with relentless pressure, and she also throws volume in her own respect. She was using her wrestling as well. Angela Hill was able to get some wrestling off and some scrambles as well. You know, I thought Angela Hill looked good, man. All things considered, at 40 years old, going out here against these young prospects time and time again, Angela Hill continues to make a good showing of herself. Yasmin Lucindo was too young. Her pressure was too much, and the volume and the difference in shot power was really what gave her the decision here. I think it was pretty clear, rounds 2 and round 3. Round 1, there's an argument for Angela Hill. She was landing at volume. She was really exchanging well with Yasmin Lucindo. It's just that 17-year age gap. You know, Angela Hill has some wear and tear. She's slowing down just a tad, and these younger fighters are starting to get the edge over her. Yasmin Lucindo looked great. I think she could be a very solid prospect in this division, and I'm excited for her moving forward. So with that, we go to 8-2, and we move to the co-main event. We got Steve Erceg and Ode Osbourne, and I had Ode Osbourne as an interesting underdog this week. The pick was Steve Erceg, but I thought Ode Osbourne had a real shot here at 135. Both of these fighters taking the fight on short notice, but they don't have to cut down to 125, which is what made me think Ode Osbourne was more live than the odds were suggesting, and he won round 1. He hurt Steve Erceg with the striking, and he was doing real good. I was really happy with how Ode Osbourne was performing here against a guy who a lot think is a very, very high level opponent. Steve Erceg just kind of didn't look like he was all there. I don't want to take anything away from Ode Osbourne, but Steve Erceg was having a lot of trouble in the striking. Ode Osbourne is a very tricky striker. And he wasn't really getting his wrestling off either. Even into rounds 2, round 3 was a little different, but even round 2, I thought there was an argument for Ode Osbourne winning that round. He was stuffing takedowns. He was landing shots. There wasn't all too much to go off of in round 2. I thought there was an argument for Ode Osbourne rounds 1 and rounds 2. But ultimately, Steve Erceg in round 3 was able to get his wrestling off, control, land some ground and pound, threaten some submissions, and he won the decision 29-28 unanimously. But it was a close one. Steve Erceg was in a very, very close fight with Ode Osbourne. I thought Ode Osbourne made a very good showing of himself, and I would not be calling it a robbery if the decision went the other way. Solid fight. Picks move to 9-2. And I like that performance from Ode, man. I don't think he has anything to hang his hat about. And then we move to the main event of the night, UFC Vegas 109, middleweight bout between Anthony Hernandez and Roman Dolidze. I picked Roman Dolidze here, and my buddies know I'm not all too high on Roman Dolidze. I never have been. I typically pick against him, and I typically never pick against Anthony Hernandez. I just couldn't help but think that Roman Dolidze was going to provide some very interesting stylistic clashes for Anthony Hernandez. And we saw it in the beginning of the fight, you know, right when Anthony Hernandez goes into the wrestling, Roman Dolidze threatens some cheeky shit, and Anthony Hernandez stands right back up. And I was like, oh, was I right? I was wrong. I was very wrong. Anthony Hernandez essentially did what he always does, except for allowed for less room for error. So he would get him down, beat on him a little bit, and anytime something sneaky or crafty looked like it was possibly about to happen, Anthony Hernandez would just stand right back up, back away, let Roman Dolidze get back to his feet, and then continue to beat on him. You know, I mean, this was a bullying, dominant performance from pillar to post, as long as it lasted into round 4 until he got that dragging rear naked choke and just dropped Roman Dolidze to the canvas. It was a violent and dominant win from Anthony Hernandez, as he is a surging contender on an 8-fight win streak in the middleweight division. I posted on my TikTok last night directly following the fights. I think Anthony Hernandez and Reinier de Ridder in a title eliminator for the middleweight strap. Obviously, that would be after the winner of Baralho and Imavov. But I think we need to get Anthony Hernandez up into the upper echelon. He is proving time and time again that he is a dominant fighter with a very, very tricky skill set to deal with. The grappling is insane. He's always looking to create damage. And also, one thing I know, Roman Dolidze I knew was a slower striker and a pretty one-dimensional kind of guy, but he throws power, and I thought he might have the advantage on the feet. Anthony Hernandez striking looked incredible. And then when you throw in that threat of the takedown and that threat of the mauling, his striking looks even better. Roman Dolidze was gassed after round 1. I'm surprised he survived until the 4th round. And this was just one-way traffic. Anthony Hernandez looked absolutely incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again. He could be fighting for a title sometime in the next year. I mean, of course, unless he gets checked. I think he needs one more, and then he has a 9-fight win streak. The middleweight division, is very stacked right now. We have a lot of talent. I think the middleweight division is in the best spot that it's been in quite some time, possibly ever. There's a wealth of talent in this division, and we need to get these guys rolling. I'm excited for Anthony Hernandez. I really hope we get that Reinier de Ritter fight next. And of course, next week, we got UFC 319. I'm going to be recording my breakdown video and dropping it tomorrow. And I'm excited for this one. We got, of course, the middleweight championship belt on the line, Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev. I'm very excited. It's a very stacked card. This was a solid fight night. I'm happy that it was exciting. You know, from a pick standpoint, we did pretty darn good. All the favorite props hit. And I'm looking to get back after it and go on to an absolute heater for UFC 319. So stay tuned. I will be dropping my full card breakdown and predictions here either later tonight or tomorrow on Monday. And we're looking to get after it. Always make sure to bet responsible, enjoy the fights, and have fun, y'all. I will be back. This is Mike Talk Fights. Let's get it.